Java series for beginners. In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at loops. Loops is where Java starts becoming really dynamic, and we can actually control the code that we're using, and we can make it repeat itself and do different things on each iteration of it. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is the while loop, and the while loop looks like this. You just write the word while, and then you have the open normal brackets, much like the if statement, and then you have the spiky brackets like so. You can see it looks exactly the same as an if statement, except we've written the word while. Now the difference between this while, the while loop, and what we were doing with the if statement is both of them take the Boolean condition inside these brackets here, except the while loop, what it's going to do, if this condition is true, it's going to run the code inside here, much like the if statement, except it's not just going to run it once, it's going to keep running it over and over again until this condition in here somehow meets false. So each iteration, it's going to check the condition, see if it's still true, and if it's still true, it's going to run it over and over again. It's basically a repeating if statement. So let's go ahead and write while true in here, and then we're going to say system.out.println. And we'll write hello world in there. And what this is going to do is it's going to say, okay, let's check the condition. The Boolean condition is true. Obviously that is the condition is true. So it's going to run the code here. Then it's going to check if the statement's still true. Obviously it's still true. And this will this true statement here will never become false because this isn't a variable. It's just the literal value of true. So basically what this program's going to do is it's going to infinitely print out hello world to the console, and we can see this if we hit run. You can see the scroll bar here just going further and further down, and this is just going to print out indefinitely until we go ahead and manually hit stop. So obviously that's not really practical in an actual program because usually you want it to stop at some point. You don't want it to just be infinitely running. So let's do an example here. Let's make an integer called a, and we're going to set it equal to 0. Now the condition we're going to make, we're going to say while a is less than 100. So that's our Boolean condition. Whilst a is less than 100, we're going to print out something. Let's go ahead and print out the value for a here. So a is obviously less than 100. So if we print this out, we're just going to see 0 printed out infinitely, much like the hello world thing. That's because this a variable is never changing. Now that we've introduced a variable into the condition of the while loop, we can actually change the while loop and what it does. So what we'll do is we'll print out the value of a each time, and then we're going to add 1 to it. And I haven't introduced this concept yet. So to add numbers, to increment a number of the same amount, you can say a is equal to a plus 1, for example, and that's perfectly valid. We're saying set the variable a equal to itself, just plus 1, and that basically increments it 1. There's an easier way to do it than that. We can simply just put 2 plus signs and then finish off with a semicolon. This basically just says add 1 to a. That's the simple way of doing it. So now this while loop has actually become more dynamic because each iteration we're going to add 1 to a, and each time it's going to check if a is equal to 100. So this loop is actually going to run 100 times until finally when a is equal to 99, we're going to add 1 to 100. Then 100 isn't less than 100, which means that the loop will have finished. Let's go ahead and add a system.out.println down here. And then we'll just write loop finished. So when we hit run here, it did that pretty quickly, obviously. So we can see in the console we've printed out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And we've printed this out all the way up to 99, and then the loop finishes here. So you can see how we can make our programs dynamic using these loops. You can make it a bigger number. It'll print out obviously up to that amount there, include all the numbers in between, and you're not limited to adding just 1. You can add whatever amount. So you can see how using these loops the programs are starting to become more dynamic. So there's actually an easier way to do this thing we've done here. For example, while a number condition is met, and then add 1 or add 2 or add 3 each time and then do something. There's actually an easier way to do that. It's called a for loop. So let's go ahead and we'll just remove this, what we've done so far.